Hey everybody, this is Dr. Craig with AI, and I'm delighted to have Linda here with us, who has some incredible examples of how to use AI and the journey to AI and how she's used that in a corporate setting. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Dr. Craig. How are you?
Great to see you. And we started talking before I hit the record button that you're going to share some of those use cases and how you started to use them in a really large environment. So how about you give us a little bit about your background and then we can launch into interesting things.
Okay, so I would consider myself a technology generalist, so I don't believe that I specialize in anything specifically, but I do have a good 20 plus years of knowledge in the technology space and working in the technology space. And so I've seen everything sort of change over a long period of time. With regards to AI, I definitely am not a guru in any way, shape or form. However, what I have been or was lucky enough to work with some incredibly smart people in my last organization, and it was a twofold piece of work. So my CTO had requested on my side to improve the skills and of our technologists. And so we had some challenges that we set as a yearly goal, and we had a couple of years of doing this. And it was to do a couple of things. It was to upskill our team, but also to tackle things like attrition, to keep people interested in the work. And also because we were looking at projects that were sort of needing different skills to what previously you may have needed or required in technology. And so for us, that was one of the goals. The other was to look at how do we use AI, and we realized very early on that the maturity of even our technology team was very immature. And so the skills piece became quite important. And one of the first things we actually did was there is a great training tool out there called AI for Everyone. And we actually got everyone to actually run and have a little session. It didn't take very long to complete it, to actually understand what AI is about, and that it's not just a simple, here it is in a little square box, it's this little thing. It actually is a lot more complex, and there's various layers to AI. And so that was the first sort of phase that we did. And then the second was setting up a group. And so I basically championed and facilitated, coordinated, working with the experts, so the SMEs within our organization, or people who were just interested. So we had people who were outside of their everyday work. They were actually working on robotics, for example, and were in competitions and stuff like that. So they had an interest in this space and what could sort of happen. And so we pulled together a working group, and we would meet and basically set up a framework around what is AI, what is it not, what are we actually looking at within the organization, as we weren't that mature. You don't want to just jump in. And so the framework and the decision was to go down the auto ML path of AI and use machine learning to understand the processes and what they could do for our existing applications, what they could do to automate some of our processes, and how we could sort of start simply. And then with that, we decided to have a bit of a challenge and set that to teams who were interested. And we created a tiering. So there was bronze level, there was silver level, and then there was gold level. And ultimately, gold level was no human interaction was needed. So you would actually implement whatever this auto ML solution would be, and there was no human need for you to step in and do anything. So before I left the organization, we did get 25 use cases to bronze level. And bronze level was basically that you had gone through, you had defined a process or found an application or whatever it may be, that you could actually use an auto ML tool or process to automate that piece of work or whatever it might have been. And so, and then we'd actually have what I would call similar to an architecture review board. We actually had a board of SMEs who would then listen to the presentation. The person would, or people would actually then demonstrate some of what they've done in an environment that was available to them, and then from there be voted to go, yes, this is now able, this is bronze certified, or no, actually we need to go back, or you need to go back to the drawing board and have a look at this because of this risk or whatever else. And so then if they got bronze certified, they could then work on the next level, which was silver, which was getting to the point of implementation and actually being signed off for going live. Now, I left the organization before we actually saw anything implemented, but I was quite pleased to even get to the point of bronze certifications and seeing some of the absolutely fabulous results that we had from just putting that challenge out to teams. Yeah.
I love that idea of people being able to choose their own topic of what they want to automate,
Correct.
finding their own tools, and then presenting back to a group of their peers to
Yeah.
choose it or think about the risks involved. That sounds fantastic. What were some of the, I'm thinking about change management and your involvement in that and coaching, and this is a great way to navigate that change, isn't it? So what were some of the barriers that you were seeking to remove or overcome through this?
So probably the biggest thing, to be honest, was to retain our staff, to keep work interesting. So we, like I mentioned before, we did have a bit of an attrition problem at the time, and that's when the market was extremely competitive. So this is a few years ago now, and so actually keeping people interested. So what I have definitely realised from working around the sort of skill space around future state technology is if you can give people opportunities to learn a skill and then give them opportunities to make a way where they can actually implement the skill, I think that's key. And I think one of the big things around that is, you know, most work is either business as usual pieces of work, or in the technology space, it's projects. And how can you, with the, you know, and in the space of generative AI, what skills do you actually need in your organization to be able to start to use that as a benefit to the organization? You've got to start by having people understand what AI is as a whole, and then what generative AI is next. And then from there, okay, if there's an interest in the technology space, and even outside of the technology space, people are interested in this, what skills do they need? And then is there certifications out there? Because one of the key things that I have seen is you can train people and you can say they've got this skill and they've got this experience, and people do want that, but there is also an underlying, what's the certification that I get that I can then, you know, for my next job, wherever I may end up going, what is that going to be a benefit to me? So I think that's another key thing. The biggest challenge though, and I have done the training course, but not the certification from IAP, I think is around privacy, is around security, is around where is the data being stored, what are you doing with the data, how do you avoid, and I think the biggest, which everyone knows in this space, is how do you avoid your own bias input into any code that you change, and how do you avoid bias, full stop. Yeah, so I think that is actually the biggest challenge, and governing that within organizations, I think that's a big gap. I think there's a big hole currently around people with the skills to be able to govern AI and what's going on in organizations and outside of organizations, to be honest. Yeah.
For a lot of schools that are hard to staff in difficult environments or remote areas, there is, and sometimes a hesitancy to train up and pay for training and certifications, because the people do take that away with them and they can use that obviously for the next job, makes them more attractive. But I guess the negative is if you don't train people, then you get stuck with what you've got and nothing changes.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't think the environment now is to the point that you can sort of sit back and go, well, everything's working fine, let's just stick at it, because I think there's competition out there, and even in the educational space, to be honest, to say, well, if we don't spend the money here and we just continue as is, at some point people are going to look at that educational organization and go, oh, they're so old school, that they're not going to actually attract the talent that they actually need. So I think they always say you need to invest in either yourself or in your business to make money. I think if you aren't having that sort of headspace, and or if you think that that there is not a need, that sort of rings alarm bells for me, at least, around, is your leadership team or are the people within your organization a little stuck, and sort of need to have a little bit of a flame set under them to maybe go, actually, there probably is competition out there. Another program that I have done, you may have heard of, which is with INSEAD, which is called the Blue Ocean Strategy program. And that really is about identifying what's the differentiator between yourself and others, or other organizations, that make you actually the winner in the long term, with regards to your strategy, that are the standouts. So for me, I think that there is a need for a strategy around what are you doing with AI as a whole, as an organization to progress.
Would you be able to share with us just a couple of examples of the use cases?
Oh, off the top of my head, not right now. The only one that I really have is where we purchased a product called Diff Blue, and that was to automate a lot of our testing within the Java space. I know that there was definitely opportunities with regards to process changes, so automating process changes. But the products that I can't remember. This is going back about 5 years ago. So yeah.
I think that this idea could be of the having the teams. We would call it a council, I guess, having a council for the AI.
Yep.
People with different SMEs or different leaders, particularly people who are keen to be early adopters and have that. We've already got over the barrier of confidence. They're keen to give it a go. Having those people trialing things out. What are some other ways do you think that school leaders could, if they're particularly a bigger school with maybe more longer serving staff who are used to doing things in a certain way, maybe hesitant about their ability to participate, how would they address the challenges of AI and getting that launched and tested in a school?
Well, I think the way to do that is, if you think about it from a human perspective, often if people are doing things the same way, have been doing the same things for a long time, the underlying human factor to this is fear of change. So I think that's probably the very first thing to be tackled, is why do people want to continue operating in the same way that they have always, and not look at what's different and what opportunities there could be. So for me, looking at what are the blockers, and probably sitting down and actually having a session with those different leaders around what are the fears. And if I was the person facilitating that, I'd actually go, well, my first fear is this, that, and for particularly for AI, a lot of people's first fear is it going to take my job away? And so getting those questions, and then you may not have the answers immediately at that point in time, but actually then going back and actually answering those questions may help with some of that fear. I think as well, there's not just fear, there is an educational piece around understanding what AI is, the various opportunities, the various downsides to AI as well. And I think they're definitely, and I've definitely seen that from my last job, was around educating people. So I was very surprised at the time of how little knowledge people who are technologists, and some of them have been technologists for a long time, really didn't know about AI. And just doing that very brief course of AI for everyone, with people, the feedback was really positive around, wow, I didn't realize this. And that sort of got the momentum going, or what can this do? I think there definitely needs to be also a budget to allow people to get themselves educated, and probably a fair bit of hand-holding to go, okay, we're going to go on this journey. What does that journey even look like? So actually telling a story around, we're starting here, we've been doing this for the last 10 years. We want to move the needle just even slightly to go, what areas do we currently have that are pain points for you? There might be, I don't know, there might be something that could be automated. And so is it a matter of, okay, we're going to experiment with this. How do we just automate this one thing and get the group working together around, okay, what are the pain points of this? What tools out there, or what could we use that is AI driven, or it might even be, you know, RPA, you might want to go down that path around getting this to be less of a problem for you. I think that sort of engagement, I suppose, is really key. But having funding, if you don't have the funding, if you don't have a budget allocated for this, and having someone who's helping drive it to actually get it, and then having awards, like actually awarding people, going, yay, internal to the education group that you're working for, around, you know, someone has just achieved AI level 1 and they're now moving to AI level 2, and people like a bit of competition, and so, you know, that might actually put a fire into people that, oh, there's a little competition here, you might have a prize of, here's $250 if you do this, whatever it might be, to actually encourage some of that uptake as well. I think that's what we actually did do. We actually did have certificates that were signed by the CTO going, so and so has done this, and here's $50, go and spend that on a dinner or whatever you want to do, and have them as little prize. That encouraged people as well. Yeah.
That's really good. I noted down 6 things you could do to help move change. That's really cool. The blocker session, some hand holding, enrolling in a course for training and learning, budget, having a cheerleader who drives it, and then having the awards as well to celebrate success. Love that. Linda, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. If people wanted to get hold of you and follow up for any reason, how would they do that? What's the best way to do it?
Probably through LinkedIn, I think. That's probably just reach out, contact me through LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. Yep.
Excellent. I'll make sure that your link is with the show notes, wherever this may be on social media. Thank you so much for your time.